think the first lesson to learn from this is that we need to be organized better and better prepared to do things when we do them. And that is one major weakness of the labor movement all across South Asia. And we are still not able to use technology to our advantage. So while we go along, we should keep noting where we have problems. Now, this was about a factory in Karachi. It's called Ali Enterprise. Produces garment for foreign markets, and in this case, mainly for a German retail chain called KIK, which bought close to 95% of the products of this factory. There were 1,500 plus workers employed in the factory, which meant even though we have our labor laws are linked to the number of workers employed in an enterprise, and their applicability is conditional to the number of total workers employed. But when you have 1,500 workers, all the labor laws in Pakistan were applicable. On top of that, there are building control laws, there are laws relating to electricity, boilers, so all that was applicable. And when this factory caught fire, on the 11th of September 2012, so we're going to have the anniversary soon. As you saw the burning factory, this was the actual footage from that factory. There were no exits in the factory. There was only one entrance, and the same was used for exit. So when the fire took place, the employers, what they did was they locked the entrance from outside. So there was no way workers could get out of that factory. If there was an exit, many of them would have been saved. Then this factory had no updated license from the Building Control Authority. They did not have had a regular checkup of their boiler, and they had not got their electrical fittings checked by the electricity inspector. But they had received an SA 8000 certificate. I'm sure you people know about it. These are like private companies which are accredited to issue social accountability certificates, meaning certifying that a particular factory is compliant to basic labor laws in the country as well as to the fundamental conventions of the International Labour Organization. So they were issued a certificate to this effect 2 weeks before this horrible incident, 2 weeks before, which showed that everything was fine and there was no danger to workers' lives. But this thing happened just 2 weeks later, and as you saw, there was no exit. There were 3 stories in this building, no exit at all. And when some workers were able to break into those steel sort of frames fixed at the windows, they fell from a height, and that caused their death. In the 1,500 workers that were employed there, only 160 were registered with the Social Security Department. Only 160. Every worker should have been registered with Social Security. Less than that number were registered with Employees Old Age Benefit Institution, which deals with pensions and related matters. So, out of 1,500 plus, and they did not keep a proper register of employees. Employees were not even issued employment letters. No employee had an ID card from the factory to prove that they worked there. So basically they, despite the fact that it was a large-scale factory, it was not small-scale by any standard, covered by all the laws, But the conditions of work and conditions of employment in this factory were completely informal and informalized. So every law was being violated in this factory. Now, that is the general condition in the industrial sector in Pakistan. And I believe it's not very different in many South Asian countries. And Bangladesh is a case in point, because even though Bangladesh achieved its liberation from the Pakistani elite in 1971, it's very interesting. They did not feel the need to change their labor laws, which was also inherited by the military regime that ruled over Pakistan and conducted this military operation against the people of Bangladesh. So this Industrial Relations Ordinance of 1969 still prevails in one form or the other in Bangladesh. And I'm sure our colleague from Bangladesh will be able to inform us more about the state of labor laws. And therefore, I think the state of workers' organization is no different in Bangladesh as compared to Pakistan. So this was a case where then how do you organize struggle? And there was no union in this factory, because to unionize you have to prove to the labor department that you are employed by a particular factory. You should be able to name the employer, but this factory was not hiring all the workers directly. Only 160 which were registered with the Social Security could be considered direct employees of the principal employer. Everybody else was recruited through what are known as contractors. We call them contract workers, and some people misunderstand that as people who have some contract with the employee. These are people who have no employment contract. They are employed through these intermediaries which are known as contractors. Actually, they are employees themselves, but they are registered with the labor department as contractors. So the principal employer can wash their hands of all the responsibility as far as labor implementation of labor laws and labor rights is concerned. So totally informalized conditions, and that is why this factory had no union. Because to form a union, 1,500 is a large number, so people should have been able to form a union. So how do these workers or their interests be represented? So very briefly, we put together a coalition of labor organizations and labor support groups, individual human rights activists, and we filed the case with the Sindh High Court, under whose jurisdiction this factory is in Karachi, for a number of, we made a number of prayers in that, for implementation of labor laws, for investigation into the causes of this horrendous accident, and for compensation to the workers, as well as a look at the existing labor laws and procedures that govern the workplaces, whether they are adequate, whether there is a need for bringing about changes. That case is going on still, but as a result of that, for the first time, the industrial owners of the industry were arrested for under charges of murder, and they had to spend almost 6 months in jail. That had not happened in Pakistan before. So that was a major kind of achievement of this legal action. Of course, along with that, we were also trying to mobilize workers as well as citizens in support of the interests of these workers. But then we also picked up the issue of responsibility of those who were buying their products and benefiting from them. So we got in touch with some of the labor support groups in Europe, particularly the Clean Clothes campaign. I'm sure you people are aware. This is a group of very, very committed people from 15 countries of European Union, and 95% of them are women. That may be one reason why this is such an efficient organization and very effective organization. So we got together with them and we approached this retail chain known as KIK, and we said, you have a responsibility, because actually this is your factory, because if you are accessing 95% of the production from this factory, it is your factory. Only you don't want to own it, so you have set it up in Pakistan and not in Germany. So you have to be held responsible. So after initial sort of reluctance, they realized that there was a responsibility, and according to European Union's codes, these employers or buyers were under obligation to go and visit this factory and see for themselves whether there were safe working conditions, whether there were compliance to what is known as core labor rights. And these people admitted that they had never visited this factory, none of them, and they were accessing this factory for almost 15 years. So he said, now you can either deal with this out of court or we will take you to court. So they agreed to pay $1 million for compensation, initial costs, because we have raised the issue that there has to be an initial and immediate compensation, but then there has to be long-term compensation, because more than 260 workers lost their lives, about 45 were very seriously injured, and there were many who had minor injuries. So they all suffered. So we said this is another issue of long-term compensation. So this was for the first time that a retail chain, a buyer from Europe, accepted its responsibility and has paid